In today's video, I'm going to be talking about, yeah, you guessed it, comic books. I picked up a couple of books on eBay, a couple of fun books, and I picked up a bunch of slabs at an auction as well. So I'm going to go through those, give you a little background on each of the books and why I picked them up and why I have no money anymore. So stick around and let's have some fun talking about comic books. All right, welcome again to Swarm of Comics. I am Randy, your gorgeous and grounded host. I have a little stack of books here, comic books, obviously. I've done that in the last couple of videos. I said I've got a couple of stacks of books, and then I correct myself and say comic books, but I did have some pulps, so I guess I'm trying to be a little more specific, but I'm not really sure why. I don't think you care, and I'm sure you know that I'm going to talk about comic books. But first of all, make sure that if you're watching this video and you've never liked or subscribed or commented or anything like that, that you do that. Not a lot of big pressure on it, but definitely helps it get into your feed and share more wonderful content I'm going to bring you. But and also, are you loving this new shirt? Black Cat Comics. Very cool stuff. I'll put a link to this shirt down in the description if you were wanted to find that. They have a bunch of comic shirts on TeePublic and also Redbubble, but enough of that nonsense. First couple of books I'm going to show you are I got on eBay. I had not seen them before. One is Bronze Age and one is new just last month. And I was not familiar with either of the books. So the first one is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. And this is a variant cover that looks like the old Secret Wars action figures from the 1980s that we used to have. I actually sent a photo of this to my friend Max. He is on the channel Joy of Cardboard on YouTube. He talks about his comic books and baseball cards, but I sent him a photo of this and he said, "Oh, cool looking action figure. I didn't know they made him for Secret Wars." And I said, "No, look closer. This is a comic book." They've got the little tag on here that gives you the information, and it's probably not going to zoom in, but it's a variant edition. And I also love the Hobgoblin. If you watch any of my videos, you know that Amazing Spider-Man 238 is one of my favorite books of all time. And I have a couple of issues of that. And but yeah, so I had already bought this book. This book is called Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars Battle World. What the book is, it started a couple of months ago. I think there's just 4 issues. Is that it revisits the original 1984 series, Secret Wars, and it sort of gives you, like you would call, between the panels. So we got the story, 12 issues in Secret Wars, but they were there for a long time and a lot of stuff happened. And this story is sort of giving you that nostalgia feel, and it's sort of a throwback. I think it's even the same like writer and everything like that. And bringing you stories that were happening in between the stories in the original series. Even a little more background as to what the whole experiment of the Secret Wars was. And each of the issues had these action figure covers. It's supposed to look like a blister card. And if I didn't have it in the shiny bag, it would be even better. But I just think that was fantastic. So it's a variant, and my comic store didn't have it as far as I know when it came out a couple of months ago. So I just picked it up on eBay. It was just cover price. Actually, it was cheaper than cover price, but you got to pay shipping. But I don't know if I'm going to get this slabbed. Like, it's so cool. How could I not get it slabbed? But it's worth $3.99. But it does look in good shape. Maybe I'd get a 9.8 on it. That'd probably be the only reason to get it done is do a 9.8. So that is the first book. This is right back to my childhood. The stickers on there and everything like that. So love that book. All right. The next book is not technically a comic book. It's actually a fanzine or a fan magazine that was put out by DC Comics. Marvel Comics did the same thing. They put out their own sort of fan book. You had to only get it through mail order. You had to sign up for a subscription. The DC one didn't last super long, but the Marvel one did. The Marvel one was called Foom, FOOM, Friends of Old Marvel. And that book has a lot of super key issues. My friend Tom Anderson, who I talk about all the time, nice guy, cool guy, does pressing for me and submits to CGC, but he also deals in comics. He buys them, sells them on Whatnot. He gets them slabbed and resells them as well. So check him out. He is on Instagram. It's like the Silver Age Collector with a bunch of underscores. I'll put the link in the description. Long story longer, he picked up a whole batch. I think he went down to Connecticut of a bunch of FOOM magazines and some of these DC ones, which are called Amazing World of DC Comics. And he started showing me and sending me pictures of them. And I was familiar with FOOM, but I was not familiar with the DC book. As I've said before, I'm not a big DC fan, so I just didn't know it existed. The Friends of Old Marvel book has a lot of key issues. There's an election issue. It's got Howard the Duck running for president on the cover. It's got technically the first preview of the new X-Men, which premiered in Giant Size X-Men, but the FOOM issue predates that. There's also another key issue, number 2. What does that have a preview of? I don't remember. I'm not a friggin' comic book encyclopedia, but there's a lot of key books. I don't, and what the books would have previews of what's coming up, behind the scenes stuff about the company, contests. It was basically keeping you entertained as a fan, as more connected to the company. And that lasted for a long time. I think that book lasted 8 years or something like that, 8 or 9 years. And those are starting to become hot. They're starting to become more collectible. People are starting to really rediscover those. And when Tom was telling me about these books, he talked to me about the DC version, which I'd never heard of, and he started sending me some photos. And one of the photos he sent me was absolutely stunning. I immediately wanted to buy it from him. And he goes, I'm probably going to get slabbed and keep it in my collection. That's what he said, which was a bummer. So I immediately went right to the Google machine to try and find this for myself. Not only because everybody loves this character, but the cover is beautiful. And it's also right straight out of my childhood. So without further babbling on about it, this Amazing World of DC Comics right here with Linda Carter, who I grew up watching in the Wonder Woman TV show, which the first season took place in the 1940s during the war, and then it jumped ahead to the 1970s in later season, as far as I remember. But who didn't love Linda Carter? Who still doesn't love her? She's amazing. Go follow her on Facebook and everywhere else. But this cover is just beautiful. The pink colors. This has a shadow line across the top. So if you see that line that's a little lighter, it's like there was something on top of it, and that was exposed to like UV lights or sunshine, like it was in somebody's, garage or something like that. So it gets this fading right there. But otherwise, it seems like it's in pretty good shape. I also think the staples are a little rusty. You might be able to see it there. But I bought it fairly cheap. And I think I'm going to get it slabbed and add it to my collection of magazine-sized books. I don't know if you can tell there, but you can see that it's much bigger than this. So this was an issue spotlighting Wonder Woman right at the peak of the Linda Carter goodness and the TV show. So this was definitely something that I was not aware of. And the more and more I become immersed in this world of serious collecting, not just collecting comics and reading them for the past 40 years, but I'm discovering new things all the time. So beautiful cover. I don't have a super background on who did it. It says Nasser did the cover. Probably should have done 5 seconds of research beforehand on this, but I didn't. But anyway, this is issue number 15. This was direct right from DC, and this was their fanzine. So those are the 2 books that I picked up on eBay, posing for the camera there, recently that I wanted to get. Like I just couldn't even. I got rid of most of my comic collection to get rid of all the bulk and things, and now I just find myself buying more. But here we are. So 2 beautiful books. Hopefully, I mean, this Wonder Woman is probably at best a 7. With those rusty staples and that tanning at the top, I might not even get over 6.5. There's a very strict rules with CGC when they do things like, oh, rusty staples can't get over a certain grade. So, but I don't care. They'll be okay. I mean, this is 1970s, beautiful book. And then this is brand new. This should be a 9.8 if I get this graded. So I'll look it over and look at the back and make sure there's no problems with it. But cool, yeah. So those were the raw books that I picked up in the auction. The next thing I'm going to go over is I won a few books that I thought were pretty good deals. One of them was kind of a steal, just adding more to my Golden Age collection that I've been building up for the past year or so. Boy, it's more than a year now. I keep saying a year, but we're creeping past a year. I think it was a year in December. You know, I have a nice assortment of Bronze Age books behind me. I'll probably swap that out and put out some Golden Age books. I like the weird stuff. I like the obscure stuff. I like good deals. I like the cool books. Sure, what I love, Action Comics #1, Detective Comics number 27. Please do not call that Tech 27. Just call the name of the book Detective Comics 27. I don't like Tech 27. I'm a grumpy old guy who yells at clouds and I want you off my lawn, and I don't like it. But you know, those books would be wonderful, but I'm really finding and discovering some new interesting obscure books. And as these grail books from the Golden Age get more and more and more expensive, collectors find new avenues, weirder things, rarer things. A lot of these books were probably in dollar bins or just not that expensive, but as other books become unattainable, collectors gravitate to other books, which then skyrockets their value. We know that pre-code horror is super hot. People keep thinking it's going to slow down, but it does not slow down. Another big thing is the good girl comics. I don't know why I call them that, because they look like very bad girls to me. Those books, especially, you keep hearing the buzzword of Matt Baker. And even in the Bronze Age, you'll hear about Dave Stevens. I'm even bidding on a Dave Stevens book, a fun book from the 1980s from Blackthorn Publishing. So good girl art is still hot. Golden Age stuff in general is hot. You're going to get stuff, war books, anything Captain America or America related in the 1940s is going to be hot. Some of those are so expensive, the average collector could just never even buy one issue. I could buy one issue of Captain America from the 1940s if it was a 0.5 restored, and I sold a bunch of books to be able to afford it. Like, they're so expensive. So where do you go? You start collecting other books like The Shield Wizard and, you know, these other, I don't even want to call them ripoffs, because there was actually some American Captain America type characters before Captain America. He wasn't the first in that type of genre, but obviously he's the most well done now. So this is a bunch of books. I'll just jump right in. This is definitely still Golden Age, and you can almost always tell Golden Age because they don't have the Comics Code Authority stamp on them. Although some types of books didn't. I think like some romance books and different books like that just never had the Comics Code Authority. I don't know why, but anyway, this is from 1953. This book's called Atomic War. What issue is this? Number 4 from Ace Periodicals. Now, this is interesting for a lot of reasons. I'm hoping I can zoom in so I can show you some of these little things on here. But this is in pretty good shape. A 5.5 for a book from 1953 is pretty good. And of course, 1951, 1953 was the Korean War. So we had the boom of World War II, and comics were huge. They were massive propaganda machines. You know, it was, you know, against the Japanese, against the Germans. They didn't really get into the Italians much, but sometimes they'd show Mussolini on the covers and the books and stuff like that. And it was always Captain America or the Shield Wizard or, you know, the Captain America, Captain Uncle Sam or whatever, punching some Nazis and stuff like that. And then when the war was over, superheroes sort of started dying out. There was less and less interest. People wanted to read Westerns. They wanted to read romance. They wanted to read war comics. And when Korean War happened, there was a boom of books that came back again. This is a generic one, Atomic War. Presents really nice. Back is actually beautiful. I mean, it's faded a little bit to yellow, but there's not a mark on that. That's actually really good. I'm actually surprised this is only a 5.5. It does have a light tanning across the top. I think that's probably not supposed to be clouds. But so yeah, this was capitalizing on the Korean War, you know, in this era, 1950s. It was interesting that looks like it's printed, typeset printed instead of writing. And of course, it's, the propaganda here of it says, when this new guided missile hits the Kremlin, those Ruskies will really have a hot time. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. Have a hot time. And also, they're shooting off a missile. And this missile says, New Year greetings, 1961. So I'm assuming that this is supposed to be a future thing, that it was that idea of MASH. MASH took place in the Korean War, the TV show, but it started airing like post-Vietnam and Vietnam, especially the movie. And it was supposed to be an analogy for the Vietnam War. I'm assuming this book is supposed to be an analogy for Korean War without coming right out and saying it, but we're attacking the Ruskies and they are going to have a hot time in 1961. This book also has an atomic bomb explosion in here. So here's a funny thing about this book, Atomic War. This was supposed to be against only a strong America can prevent atomic war. That's what it actually says up there. But the funny part is, in this book, they seem to love atomic war. They're friggin' blowing up every communist country during this period. So, I mean, by preventing atomic war, they mean starting atomic war, apparently. So that was the first book. I mean, that was just a beautiful cover, a great book to have. So that's slab number one. Enough about that story. This is also just at the end of World War II. And this was a hero that had a radio show. And I've talked about it before. The radio show was more pilot. And the comic book became more superhero as time went on. They sort of diverged, and they were two different things. I have a couple of issues of this book, two really cool ones. One that's going to be out for graded, one that I bought graded, and then this one I bought graded. So this is a pretty cool book. This one is issue of Captain Midnight, a 6.5 from 1945, right at the tail end of World War II. They're obviously flying in a plane. They're fighting the Japanese Zeros right here. I don't know why there's a guy with a tie who obviously looks sick to his stomach from flying around there. But he would have a superhero like a Batman. He had gadgets and things in his belt and stuff. He didn't have superpowers, but he was definitely a superhero. Guns and stuff. Another interesting thing to point out on their plane is you can see these. This is the Japanese flag, the rising sun or whatever. Their flag is normally white with the red circle in Nippon, and during the times of war, this is the war flag. Their national flag would change, and this is obviously signifying all of the Japanese planes that Captain Midnight had shot down. Again, World War II propaganda. They I don't know whether the government was paying these companies or there was so much rah-rah anti-war, or not anti-war, people were full on for fighting the war propaganda, that they were just into it. They just demanded these books because they ate this stuff up. But this is from Fawcett Publications, which is, if you know, it did like Captain Marvel. It came from Wiz Comics and so forth. So 1945, Leonard Frank art. I thought that was a super weird, interesting cover, and I have the issue right before it. I think I have 34. So very cool Captain Midnight book. Because I can't afford Captain America books, I've got the knockoff Captain Midnight. But Captain Midnight had, like I said, a very successful radio show. Millions of people listen to it on the radio. And that'll be a nice segue into the next book, which was so weird that I had to buy it. I don't know. I guess it'll just explain itself. This is Bobby Benson's B-Bar Writers. B-Bar-B Writers. Figure that out. So he's a kid. He's like 12 years old, and clearly he's getting attacked by a very supple, muscular, sexy mountain lion, and then a horse. His horse is saving him. So Bobby Benson was also a radio show that started, I think, in the 30s, and there was a number of Bobbies as they got older. There was a couple of, it went all the way until the 50s. I think it was broken up a little bit. And they had a comic book. I don't know how long it lasted. I think it lasted like 3 years. I think it lasted, funny enough, during, I think, the length of the Korean War, 1950, 1953. So this is issue number 3 from 1950. Yeah, September, October 1950. This is a 7.0. This is in pretty good shape. This was recently submitted. You can tell by the higher number here on there. But it doesn't look like they gave it a press. Nobody pressed it or cleaned it. I don't know if that would have helped it, maybe a little bit, but the 7 is still really good. I love the red covers. This had some bright whites here in the logo, and this was definitely very bizarre. So Bobby Benson is based on a radio show, and had a comic book for a couple of years. So I picked up fairly cheap. Who is the publisher? Magazine Enterprises. Oh, the other thing about that, Magazine Enterprises. You've seen this before, I think, when I did my top 10 Golden Age books. I included Ghost Rider. So most people know Ghost Rider is the flame skull motorcycle rider. But before that, he was a cowboy with a mask. He dressed in all white, and he looked like a ghost on a white horse. And the original one was from, I don't remember the name of the comic. It was some guy's name, but it was a Western book, and he appeared. And his name was Rex Fury, I think. Please correct me in the comments if I'm not remembering correctly. And he rode a horse, and he, fought crime in the Old West and so forth. He appeared in B Riders. I can't say that right. That doesn't flow well. Who thought that was a good idea? But Ghost Rider was actually in some of these books as well. And he got his own book in 1950 with Magazine Enterprises, and I have that first issue of that. That's a very cool pickup. And then when Marvel took it over, they changed over the character, and his name was like Carter something. I don't remember what it was. So this has gone through 3 sort of iterations. He was the original Western, then the second Western, and then Marvel, in Marvel Spotlight number 5. Oh, right there. Brought us the motorcycle riding, modernized the old Ghost Rider. So cool book. Thought that was fun and unusual. My guess is so far, unless you're a super hardcore collector, you've probably never even seen any of these books. Like, I think they're pretty scarce, rare. I mean, tell me honestly, have you ever seen Captain Midnight number 35 with that cover? I'd seen it, but now I own it. All right, couple more. This is also an interesting one. There's a couple of Archie books that I want, and this is an Archie book, spoiler. I'd love to get Pep Comics 155, and I bid on one in a recent auction, and I didn't get it. I didn't want to bid higher. It was a graded one, like a 3.5 or something like that. And it wasn't expensive. I just felt like I was paying too much, and I didn't buy it. And I said, well, let me just go to eBay and see what they're going for. No, I messed up. They're going on eBay. They're selling, not just going for, they're selling for 3 times what I would have paid on that book. And now I'm regretting not doing it. It's a cool, spooky sort of Halloween cover. So check that out if you're not familiar with it. Maybe I'll throw an image up on the screen right here or right here. I don't know. I'll do it on one side. That is Pep 155. Of course, Pep Comics used to be a superhero book, and that is where Archie first premiered. So this is just when Archie got his own title. It was just called Archie. And this is issue number 11. This is from 1944. It's a low grade, a 2, but I still think it presents pretty well. They slapped it back together and put it in this pretty good. But if you'll see the artwork here, Archie is apparently dressed up like a baby in a diaper. And he is saying, darn it, the things a guy has to do just to join a fraternity. So apparently Archie at this point was in college, and you can see Betty and Veronica, and they're very different, and even Archie, than what we sort of know today, the more cartoony, like they're more, good girl art, Matt Baker style there, and in college. So a little bit different. And it says the slogan is the mirth of a nation. I guess instead of the birth of a nation, he's the mirth of a nation. So although I'm not a bunch of an Archie collector, there are a couple of issues that are pretty cool. And I saw this low grade, cool looking cover, weird cover, and I decided to pick it up. So not sure if you're any Archie fans out there, or if you guys have seen this before, but I mean, this is Archie number 11 from 1944. So it stars Archie Andrews. In case you don't know Archie's last name, he's Archie Andrews. So funky book right there. Not expensive book, but a fun one to have. None of these were super expensive. Okay, last book. This book is kind of interesting. I bid on it before, copies of this before, and I lost. And I got this one, and it was a lower grade than I wanted, and it was a lower grade than I bid on, but the price was pretty good. This is a superhero book. This one's called Blue Bolt. So, I always talk about my red covers, but here's a blue cover. It's very simplistic. It just has the Liberty Bell on there, and it says Blue Bolt. Plus, it also says Blue Bolt right there. This is from 1943, and it's in pretty beat up shape. And they say it's a 3.0, but that's a pretty good 3.0. That Archie is a 2.0 and looks better than this, but who knows? But Blue Bolt was a superhero. He was, I can't remember his name, but he was struck by lightning multiple times, and they gave him an experimental medicine or treatment, and suddenly he had the power to shoot lightning bolts out of his hands. It premiered in 1940, so not long after Superman. I mean, 2 years can be an eternity in the world of comic books, but this book went for a long time. I think it went 100 issues or something like that, or more. Not a very super popular hero, although some issues of Blue Bolt do go for good money, especially in nice grades. I just loved this cover. I bid on at least 2 copies in the past, and I finally won this one. Wasn't, again, you're gonna hear that it wasn't super expensive. I'm not out here buying, Action Comics #1 or anything like that. Tech 27. But what was I gonna say about Blue Bolt? Back then, characters didn't really have their own titles. He was Blue Bolt, and his book was called Blue Bolt in 1940. Superman's was in Action Comics. Batman was in Detective Comics. Wonder Woman premiered in All-Star Comics. There was More Fun Comics, All-Star Comics. There was lots of books, Sensation Comics, and things like that. Heroes didn't always right away get their own books. There wasn't that concept because these books were usually much thicker. They sometimes had 40, 50, 60 pages of them, and they didn't just have one character, they had multiple. So Blue Bolt is one of the first heroes to have a title named after them. Blue Bolt actually, I think, premiered in a different book, if I remember correctly, and then ended up with their own title. So that is a pretty cool one. If you're not familiar with that, Liberty Bell cover. All right, that was the last book. That is my pickups for today, and that is my video for today. Make sure you go check out my other videos, like, subscribe, comment, tell me how funny I am and amazing these videos are. That always helps. Go check out the comic shirt store link and everything like that. And appreciate you joining me and hanging out. Again, my name is Randy. This is Swarm of Comics, and you are everybody else.